Good early morning, Carly and Todd. President Trump touting the success of his crime crackdown dubbed Operation Summer Heat, presenting the after-action report from the Oval Office, and says he's eyeing San Francisco for the next city he wants to see cleaned up.
I'm going to be strongly recommending, at the request of government officials, which is always nice, that you start looking at San Francisco. I think we can make San Francisco. There's one of our great cities 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now it's a mess. And we have great support in San Francisco, so I'd like to recommend that for inclusion.
After the teens who assaulted the former DOJ staffer known as Big Balls received no jail time, only probation, FBI Director Kash Patel says judges need to hand out stiffer sentences.
Arrests without prosecutions are meaningless. We are deterring criminals from doing this activity. We are preventing criminals from coming into America. And we are absolutely crushing violent crime like never before and defending this homeland, sir.
And here's Attorney General Pam Bondi on the latest actions in Memphis.
Last night alone in Memphis, there were almost 70 arrests. There were 12 guns seized. And there was a 70-year-old man arrested as a result of our operation in Memphis who raped a child under the age of 3. That one case makes everything we're doing worthwhile.
Here's the numbers for FBI's Operation Summer Heat. Over 8,600 arrests, over 2,000 firearms seized, over 500 children found. The number of fentanyl seized, 421 kilograms. That's over 900 pounds, Todd. And there's over 2,000 criminal indictments. Now, Patel said from the beginning of the year there have been over 2,300 arrests. That's more than double the number compared to the last year of the Biden administration, guys.
Right.
Shut up. Up.
I don't know how to feel about that. I don't. Here's what I do feel good about. We are back in the studio. Holy moly. Man, we did a rip-roaring tear through the East Coast, and now we are back, baby, in the studio today in Tampa. Whew, it feels good to be back. We were in D.C. and New York for some meetings, very interesting stuff. And, well, you know what? We'll just see. God has a plan. There's a lot of fun and good energy out there right now. There's a lot of exciting times to save the country for our kids. And that's pretty much all that matters, right? That's it. That's the goal of this show. That should be the goal of your life and mine. In our own way, God calls us to our own special purpose to ensure that we are not cursing our children, that we are saving this nation and giving it to them, whether it's your kids, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, or the kids that you want to have someday in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a day to preserve it for them, and that is what we do on this program. So let us rock, let us roll. Today is Thursday, October 16, 2025. Nancy Pelosi throws hysterical meltdown as reporter asks questions about January 6th. There's a real important thing that happens in this video. And it's probably the most viral video on the internet right now. And we're going to break it all down with why Nancy Pelosi is so angry. She is, in fact, guilty. And we're going to see what happens next. John Bolton to be indicted today, live on the show. Baby, get the mustache handcuffs ready. Byron Donalds and Wesley Hunt will join the program to talk about Pelosi's psychotic meltdown. Nancy Pelosi is not having a real one, but we certainly are. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. American financing can make sure that you are out of debt fast, quick, and in a hurry. It'd be great to get our federal government out of debt. It'd be great to get our nation out of debt. It'd be great to not have a household that is totally and completely collapsing from a federal level. But if your household, ladies and gentlemen, is trapped in high interest credit card debt, you are in modern day financial slavery. Get out from under that high interest debt today. American Financing and their salary-based mortgage consultants can help save you right now hundreds of dollars a month by unlocking the value in your home equity. Call American Financing today at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, americanfinancing.net/betting. Okay, Nancy Pelosi shrieks and screams, "Shut up, shut up, shut up," loses it at reporter over question of January 6th. Now, this is a fascinating question. We have a ton of background on this, but the people's history of Nancy Pelosi and the National Guard goes very nicely like this, as has been, I just can't believe what I saw on Klein's screen. I can't believe it. We have literal mustache handcuffs for John Bolton. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt this breaking news with more breaking news, but this is how good our team is, ladies and gentlemen. I needed this. Thank you very much. It's been I have pretty much not slept for a couple days. We're just like straight up redlining. So it's going to be like squirrel, for me. And that's an acorn. And I just loved seeing it. That was amazing. Mustache handcuffs. Okay, great. I'm happy to use the mustache handcuffs on Pelosi. Here's why. Nancy Pelosi is probably the number one person who could have prevented January 6th. Now, what do I mean by that? Even if you had a bunch of feds, even if you had a bunch of Goombas who are out there screaming, "We got to go into the Capitol, let's get in. That's where our problem is. Let me just cut the fences down. Let's just set up some gallows here. We'll just make sure the bunch of guys with the earpieces are smashing all the windows, opening up all the doors, make sure everyone gets going in." There is one way to prevent all of it. All of it. No matter what every Fed or undercover agent tried to do, whatever any Antifa tried to do, no matter what any usurper, bad actor, LARPing as a MAGA supporter, it's amazing. Where was Antifa that day? I lived through all of it. I was there on January 6th, of course. Like, I was invited. I was sitting in the front row at Trump's speech. I didn't go to the Capitol. I saw it, and I was like, probably best to stay away from that one. But because by the time I got it, it really was like there something. It had descended, and I was like, something went horribly wrong here. This is not MAGA. And that's been proven a lot of times, obviously, in the number of undercover feds, we now learn there are hundreds of undercover feds in the audience that day. We've also learned that there are BLM activists, Antifa activists that have been federally charged, who are members of left-wing groups that were there that day, LARPing, playing MAGA. They wore MAGA hats. They were there in order to slander our movement, malign us, and to get people indicted and put in prison. Some of them have been put in prison, and through their trials, as we have demonstrated time and time again, through their trials, they have been exposed as left-wing agitators who were there that day, along with hundreds of feds who were there that day, along with Ray Epps, along with every single other agitator that was there in order to maliciously slander and troublemaker and riot and break things and to malign the entire movement. That was the op. Okay, so that op happened. And here's my contention, that I don't care what the op was, if Nancy Pelosi had done her damn job, which constitutionally she is seated with the authority as the Speaker of the House at the time, the keys, the protection of the Capitol falls to the Speaker of the House. Those keys jangled in Nancy Pelosi's Skeletor hands that day and in the preceding days. And Nancy Pelosi decided swiftly and in her own voice and with her own actions and her own admission, actually, and we'll play you the clips, to not allow the National Guard. Understand that no matter what psyops they had planned for that day, none of it could have happened with the National Guard. I was just in D.C. I saw National Guard troops in D.C. 24 hours ago. Have you seen National Guard troops? Have you ever walked up to a military base? Do you know how intimidating these people are? I don't want to go over, the passage prologue. We talked about this before, but I lived through all of it, right? I witnessed it all. And I'm telling you that this was the only day that Antifa and BLM didn't show up to work. This is the only day that Antifa and BLM was not actively torching the city, rioting, throwing bricks, sticks, rocks, knives, burning things. They were gone. They vanished. And they were all wearing MAGA hats that day and attacking the Capitol. That's provable. But no one, nothing, no FBI undercovers, none of them could have done anything if the National Guard had been there. It would just have been stopped dead, cold, in its tracks. No funny business would have happened. The Capitol wouldn't have been attacked. Okay, there's a scuffle with police, arrest the guy. I've always been in favor of that. Don't punch cops. Punch cops, get arrested. Wearing a black block or a MAGA hat. Don't punch cops. We've always said that on the show. Who cares? Maybe there's a scuffle there. Maybe some guy gets too hot-blooded and like jumps a fence. Arrest him, throw him, and arrest him, charge him. Whatever. But there would have been no attack on the Capitol if the National Guard had been deployed. Nancy Pelosi did not deploy the National Guard. Nancy Pelosi has admitted this. Alex, where's the clip? I want the clip of Nancy Pelosi saying, we should have deployed the National Guard. This Pelosi total failure. Is it right here? Clip E? Okay. Nancy Pelosi has admitted this. Not only has it been admitted in writing, Nancy Pelosi has admitted it in word. No, I thought that she was in the back of a car. There we go. All right, boys. ALX, when I say dig deep on these Pelosi clips, you know where we're going here, okay? Let's lock and load. Here's the Nancy Pelosi in the back of the Jeep, National Guard. Is it clip? Oh, clip D. Okay, never mind. The ALX had it. ALX AI always has it. Forgive me, as we are redlining here. Here we go. All right. The ALX is now like, bro, I got you. I know you do. ALX. Here we go.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had been. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
I take responsibility for not having them. Why wasn't the National Guard here, says Nancy Pelosi. She's fleeing the Capitol. I take responsibility. Nancy Pelosi calling all this a total failure. These are all, thank goodness her silly little daughter was there making a documentary film because she captured all of the criminal evidence right here on tape. Here we go. All right, back. You can barely hear that. Next time we should probably caption something like this. It's extremely hard to hear. Why don't we send it over to the team for captioning? But you can hear there, and perhaps you could hear the same thing I could through the muffled mask. I mean, it's like they're clink-clopping with their their little girl boss heels, and through their masks, Nancy Pelosi saying, "We're totally unprepared. This is a total failure. We're totally unprepared." The question, of course, is, does Nancy Pelosi suffer from extreme incompetence or malice on this day? Perhaps that's something that a trial will prove. But Nancy Pelosi doesn't seem to be putting up a good defense for herself. If you actually look at the clips, the evidence of the day, and what she was saying at the time. This is one that's always confused me, and I won't belabor it. I promise you I won't go on like a long conversation about that. This is the craziest clip from January 6th. You want to see the single craziest clip from January 6th? Right here. Pelosi punch out. Where Nancy Pelosi straight up admits with the crowds in the background. Nancy Pelosi, crowds at the Capitol, they're all there, everyone's waving their signs, and Nancy Pelosi's standing there live being like, I've been waiting for this. Trespassing at the Capitol. She's straight, like, no one's ever heard of trespassing at the Capitol before as a crime. The Capitol is public grounds. We all pay for the Capitol building. Right now, you can walk up to the Capitol building and you can get a ticket for free, walk right into the Capitol building and roam around, okay? Part of a tour group, part of a congressional tour, right? You just get a little minder. You can do it no matter what, no matter who you are. You walk right in, get a ticket, and walk right through the Capitol. Just, you know, you can do it. You can do it. Right now, go to the Capitol Visitor Center. There's never been such, and you can wander around the Capitol like crazy. You can go right up to it. You can touch it. You can walk the stairs up to a certain point. There's no such thing as trespassing on the Capitol grounds. What the hell is she talking about here? Here's Nancy Pelosi straight up signaling what they're going to charge thousands of January 6ers with. Trespassing at the U.S. Capitol while January 6th is going on. It's the single most damning piece of evidence I've ever seen that all of this was a premeditated setup. Go.
Secret Service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment he is not coming, but that could change.
Oh, he comes, I'm gonna punch him out. This is my
wow,
moment.
I would pay to see
I've
that.
been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm gonna punch him out, and I'm gonna go to jail, and I'm gonna be happy.
Oh, wow. Pelosi said she's going to punch President Trump. That's not the headline. Stop focusing on that. That's stupid. Focus on the real headline. The real headline is that Nancy Pelosi says, with January 6th going on in the background, I've been waiting for this, trespassing on the Capitol grounds. It defies all explanation. No such thing as that. Nancy Pelosi had something cooking, right? And the people who know the most about January 6th, like Chief Stephen Sund, is now making sure that everyone understands that Nancy Pelosi refused to take his calls, refused to answer his requests for National Guard. So this is the clapback to our viral clip today. So I guess let's play the viral clip, Pelosi snapping on all this. I sort of wanted to present the evidence and then move to the commentary of it. So this is the evidence of Nancy Pelosi just refusing to send the National Guard. Now, there's also documented evidence of Kash Patel giving thousands of National Guard troops to Nancy Pelosi. There's documented evidence. Why was Kash Patel doing this? Because he was the chief of staff of the Department of Defense. There's documented evidence of thousands and thousands of National Guard troops being offered to the United States Capitol for its defense. Here is the evidence. So it literally lied in Pelosi's Skeletor hands, and now Pelosi's lying. Here is Nancy Pelosi being asked about this yesterday and losing her mind. Here we go.
Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
The spin around to the camera and then the smile is it's very great. Okay. The president did send it. Here we go. The acting Department of Defense secretary from the Secretary of Defense memorandum dated January 4th for the employment of the District of Columbia National Guard, allowing Nancy Pelosi full access to the National Guard. Memorandum to the Secretary of the Army. It's an obscene lie. Nancy Pelosi is caught dead to rights on this one. And that is why she lost her mind. Shut up. All right? It's like dentures flying out of her mouth. This is why she's losing it. Now, Chief Stund, he was the Capitol Hill Police Chief during January 6th, has once again clapped back at Nancy Pelosi with cold, hard facts. It's not the first time that he's done this, but I love it every single time it happens. Ma'am, let me refresh your memory. It was your sergeant at arms who repeatedly denied my multiple requests for National Guard assistance before and on January 6th. Even on January 6th, your sergeant at arms denied my urgent request for over 70 minutes while he was running it up the chain for your approval. The Pentagon offered National Guard assistance, but it had to be declined because your sergeant at arms would not grant me the legal authority required under federal law. And then he catalogs every single denied request, saying that Pelosi didn't like the optics of National Guard being deployed. Now, this is something that I thought was particularly rich from Democrats about the current deployment of the National Guard to Washington, D.C. Because after January 6th, Nancy Pelosi demanded the National Guard set a fortress up around the Capitol building, not anywhere else in D.C., as my block descended into gangland violence and third world horrors. My block also was just probably 2 or 3 blocks away from where the National Guard, where the Army Armory is in D.C. So that's where all the National Guard were staying. They weren't allowed to police any of the criminals that were running rampant, stealing cars, shooting up neighborhoods, robbing people, burning things down. The National Guard didn't police any of them. D.C. natives and gang members were able to come into D.C. and rape, murder, and pillage with immunity as the National Guard just watched. The National Guard was deployed to D.C. and set up a fortress to one, install Joe Biden, and then to 2, protect Nancy Pelosi for the better part of the next 6 months. They put up concertina wire, gates, armed guards. They were there 24 hours a day. They stood and walked a post. The Capitol was a medieval fortress. Isn't it amazing what they did there? They didn't do it for the betterment of anyone living in D.C. They did it for their own petty security. And then they have the bloody cheek to scream when Donald Trump deploys the National Guard to protect the actual city and the residents of that city. Isn't that amazing? They loved it when every National Guardsman from all over the country was deployed there to protect them so they could trot around the Capitol like they were living on a military base. When Trump does it to actually clean up Washington, D.C., so you can travel there with your family to see the nation that is your birthright, they lose their minds. Something else. Isn't it something else? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, it's beautiful to have been on the right side of history here. Nancy Pelosi on the wrong side of history. Stephen Sun has been on our show and straight up spit the truth about this. I'm telling you, this is a very honest man. I've got to know this man. And I look forward to him testifying in this new January 6th committee. Here we go.
So please, if you would, I could read it live on air. I'd rather you actually explain what happened on the day of January 6th, given the fact that Nancy Pelosi has decided to use Trump's deployment of the National Guard as a attack vector. I think that's not a smart strategy given Pelosi's history. Could you please explain that history with Nancy
Yes,
Pelosi?
let me take you back to a couple days before January 6th. Take you back to Sunday, January 3rd. It was the first day of the new Congress. They're all being sworn in. That was the day I went over specifically to see both the House and Senate Sergeant at Arms to request the use of the National Guard to help support my perimeter. Again, a lot of people don't realize National Guard can't come up to Capitol Hill, and I cannot bring National Guard up to Capitol Hill without approval of the Capitol Police Board. It's actually by law, it's 2 U.S. 1970. The Capitol Police Board has to make the request. But I went to the 2 Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving, who's the House Sergeant at Arms, works specifically directly for Nancy Pelosi, and the Senate Sergeant at Arms, which was Mike Stinger at the time, who worked for McConnell. Went to see them in person to request National Guard support to help support my perimeter. I had 273 officers to support the perimeter during a joint session of Congress. All I wanted was unarmed National Guard to help maintain the perimeter. A fence line is no good if you don't have people behind it. Went up to see Paul Irving. I have my exact times. I've turned over all my video transcripts on my phone records, have my exact times. It was Sunday morning, approximately 9:35. Went over to see Paul Irving and was denied. was denied bringing in federal resources, specifically because he was concerned about the optics of having National Guard on Capitol grounds. He then referred me over to Mike Stinger, who is the now the chairman of the Capitol Police Board, the Senate Sergeant at Arms. Went over immediately to see him. He wasn't in. I came back approximately 11:40 to see him again. As soon as I came walking in and started asking for the use of the National Guard, he already had a denial queued up. He wouldn't allow me to bring in the National Guard. Later, he told me that Paul Irving had come up and told him that Sund was coming to request the National Guard, and they had to come up with another idea because he was believed he would never get that by Pelosi.
To boil it all down, you begged Nancy Pelosi's leadership structure for National Guard protection days before January 6th.
Correct.
And you have a record of that, and Nancy Pelosi's leadership structure and enforcement structure, security enforcement structure, told you flatly, no, this is going to look bad we don't like the look of it or whatever, and no.
100% correct. I was denied twice. Specifically, they would not approve the request, specifically concerned over optics. You are absolutely right.
All right. Well, it's very inconvenient for people like Nancy Pelosi or Stephen Sund to be out there spitting facts. Very inconvenient for Nancy Pelosi. All of the facts that align here, including the creepy videos of her being like, I've been waiting for this. President Trump putting up on Truth Social, the Biden FBI placed hundreds of agents in the crowd during January 6th. If this is so, which it is, a lot of very good people will be owed big apologies. What a scam. Do something, says President Trump. Let's go ahead and read here from Just the News. FBI bombshell, 274 agents sent to Capitol for January 6th. Maybe many later complained that they were political pawns. Hidden for years. An after-action report on the FBI's involvement in January 6th, found by Director Patel, shows dozens of agents feared that the FBI had become woke and liberally biased. Goodness gracious. The FBI secretly deployed more than 250 plainclothes agents to the U.S. Capitol during the January 6th riot. An operation so disorganized it unleashed searing frustrations among many of the FBI's rank and file. The Bureau had lost its core competencies to wokeness and allowed its employees to become pawns in a political war, according to an after-action report kept from the public for more than 4 years. Scores of FBI agents and personnel, many from the Bureau's premier Washington field office, sent anonymous complaints to the after-action team detailing how agents were sent into unsafe scenarios without proper safety equipment or the ability to identify themselves readily to armed officers. Most persistent complaint was that the Bureau, during the James Comey and Christopher Wray era, had become infected with political biases and liberal ideology that treated the protests from the summer of 2020 Black Lives Matter riots far differently than those arrested in the aftermath of the January 6th episode. Isn't that the case, right? Do you know of anyone who caught a charge for raping, pillaging, or murdering during the BLM riots? Do you know anyone? Is that even real? Has anyone been charged with anything? It'd be really nice to see some true crimes charged for the BLM organization. Are the statute of limitations passed? It'd be fun to find out. The FBI should make clear to its personnel and to the public that despite its obvious political bias, it ultimately still makes its mission and priorities, it still takes its mission and priorities seriously, one employee wrote in a stinging review. It should equally and aggressively investigate criminal activity, regardless of the offender's perceived race, political affiliations, motivations, and should equally and aggressively protect all Americans, regardless of perceived race or political affiliations. I totally agree with this. If you send a death threat to a left-winger, or if you send a death threat to a right, to somebody on the right, both of them should be charged. All of it is evil, so on and so forth. Like, I'm in total agreement here. And the problem is that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who behaved in criminal fashion throughout the Antifa and BLM riots, where every single day our nation's capital was under attack and burning, none of them ever got charged. They were able to tear down statues in Washington, D.C. Hey, Alex, can you get me that video of them trying to tear down the statue of Andrew Jackson outside of the White House? It is still one of the most, it is important to remind people what we've been through as a country. It's just crazy, man. It's crazy. Kash Patel, by the way, in charge of the FBI, had a big press conference yesterday. He was on our show in 2023 explaining, no, Nancy Pelosi's lying. This is how right we've been. We're closing the book on 2025. I can't believe that. We're entering 2026. 3-year-old clip now of Kash Patel on our program telling you the truth and the true facts of January 6th. Let's go.
So can you please rewind the clock? And your time is valuable. I don't want you to have to repeat yourself, but can you please give us a play-by-play of what you offered? Because you were the one who was making the offer. You know, you were the man in the room, where it happens. What did Donald Trump offer on the morning of January 6th?
Yeah, so I was chief of staff at the Department of Defense at the time, and he actually offered it 2 days before January 6th. We were in the Oval Office, me, SecDef, chairman, and a couple other people. And we're talking about some sensitive operations unrelated to anything here. And President Trump said, hey, look, I've seen that there's a lot of people that are going to be in and around January 6th, not just in D.C., but around the country. What are we doing to offer security? And, of course, I'm paraphrasing, and I said, sir, well, we have the National Guard. He said, okay, well, I'm authorizing up to 10 to 20,000. And the reason he did that, because he preemptively had the foresight to know in case something happens, he doesn't want to have to be the one put in the position to say, I made a bad national security decision and didn't authorize it. The Constitution and the Supreme Court have a 2-part test. President has to authorize National Guard. Step 1. Step 2. The local governor or mayor, since it's D.C. in this instance, or head of law enforcement, Nancy Pelosi, has to request the National Guard after the authorization. It's posse comitatus, it's Supreme Court law, because our founding fathers don't want uniformed military personnel to occupy Washington, D.C. or anywhere else. Makes total sense. Well, after that, 2 days before January 6th, I sent my team to both Pelosi and Bowser in person. We can offer you up to 10, maybe 20,000 National Guard, but you guys know you have to tell us you want it. We can't mobilize, we can't equip, we can't man up until you sell me, go. And they wrote, now the letter's out there. Mayor Bowser's letter is out there where she says, I declined. The Capitol Police timeline specifically states they went to Nancy Pelosi upon request of the Department of Defense for National Guard, and she said, nope. So that's why it didn't deploy. And I want to tell you the story about January 6th, which I really haven't told much.
Please.
The day of when the riot and everything was going on outside, of course, now Pelosi's calling us, me, SecDef, screaming, why isn't the National Guard here? And then we were like, wait a second. So are you authorizing it? Okay, authorized. Okay, where are they? As if I can just grow 10,000 Americans who are teachers, doctors, cops, lawyers, parents. I have to fly them in, kit them up, arm them, train them, equip them, then deploy them through law enforcement, because they're an accompaniment to law enforcement. They're not a military, to august security operations.
I'm going to call the National Guard in to remove that chandelier from Kash's shot. That also should be a National Guard deployment. Enough. Those were great days. Those were exciting days. We were proud to have been on the right side of history here. Those were very scary days, to tell the truth about January 6th and the 2022, 2023 timeline. I mean, goodness gracious. You get like that. That's exactly how you get all of your accounts deleted, right? You get thrown in jail. But we were proud to have told the truth, and we were right. And now Nancy Pelosi is running scared. As should everybody in this shot. Just really quickly here. Look at this. Look at this. Look at what was happening in your country. This isn't some park in the middle of Wyoming. This is the White House. This is outside the White House. You can go see that statue today. That's a statue of Andrew Jackson. He's a great American president. Look at what they wrote on it. They're killer, scum. So, and then look at them defacing it. They're trying to pull it down. So they've wrapped a bunch of stuff around the neck of the statue. Speaking of statutes of the federal government, let's go ahead and check in here on the DOJ website. Yes. 18 U.S. Code 1361, destruction of government property. boy, sure as hell looks like there's destruction of government property going on. They're trying to tear down this giant statue, this historic statue in front of the White House. Is this not destruction of property? Here's the U.S. Code. Section 1361 protects any property of the United States of America, agency or department thereof, from being manufactured or constructed in the United States, an agency department thereof, from being willfully depredation. Okay, well, that depredation has been characterized as an act of plundering, robbing, pillaging, or laying waste. All right. Not a commonly used word, but nonetheless, this is something that could land you with a $250,000 fine or potentially thrown in prison. 1 year imprisonment. Okay, so here's my question. How many of these protesters got a year in prison and a $250,000 fine? They're full face on camera. Can we play the clip again? Full face on camera, hundreds of them doing worse than anything I saw on January 6th. And here they are. They've wrapped cables around the neck of the statue that is directly across from the White House. Killer scum, they wrote on it. They're climbing up the statue. Here's the government statute in the criminal code. Nothing. That's what people say. This is what the FBI was raging about when they're like, you're clearly politicizing prosecutorial discretion in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the great Byron Donalds joining the program here. And he's getting tested right now and set, and we're going to lock in. We have come off of a trip where we had to take a train. I took a train through Union Station, just like fast forward to the great day, like to now. Oh, man, the difference is unbelievable. The difference is incredible. Union Station was sparkling. I've never seen anything like it, the Trump administration. It used to smell like bum piss. There used to be degenerate people just sleeping in it. They were just sleeping there, bathing in it, peeing and pooping all over Union Station. It's one of the single most beautiful buildings in all of America. If you've never seen it, Washington, D.C.'s Union Station is gorgeous. And the Trump administration has cleaned it up because the National Guard was deployed for the American people and not for Nancy Pelosi's personal army of protection. Anyway, I was able to capture all of this with my Patriot Mobile device. Patriot Mobile travels with me everywhere that I go. It helps me film on the road, kick those videos to my team, kick them out onto the internet, be locked and loaded. It is the #1 Christian conservative wireless provider available on all 3 major U.S. networks nationwide. They offer unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, and internet backup, and more. Switching is easier than ever. Activate in minutes from your home or office. Keep your number or your phone or upgrade today. Take a stand for free speech and good connectivity on your wireless devices. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Use a promo code Benny for a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT to make the switch today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's switch it up and go to Byron Donalds, the next governor of Florida. I think that's his preferred pronouns. Let's go. Byron, what's up, man?
Benny, how you doing?
Good to see you. Okay, there we go. Okay, looking sharp in the suit. I wasn't sure if the government's shutdown cut the wardrobe budget or anything like that for members of Congress. So good to see.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, Nancy Pelosi going viral for this clip of her freaking out about January 6th and the new January 6th committee. Can you comment on this, Byron? What's going on here? And should she be scared?
Yeah, she should freak out. What most people don't know is when we in the oversight committee, when we were investigating what happened during January 6th, Nancy Pelosi was stonewalling the oversight committee from being able to get all of the information. One of the key pieces of testimony we were never able to receive was from the Capitol Police. Oversight, and this is when she was Speaker of the House. The Oversight Committee had 2 hearings. Capitol Police was never allowed to testify in either hearing, even though they were requested by Republicans. And the only person who can control the Capitol Police from not testifying in a hearing is the Speaker of the House, because the Speaker of the House has direct oversight and control of who runs the Capitol Police. So one of the keys. So another thing that we found out, there are essentially four people that control the security apparatus of the Capitol. The Speaker of the House actually is directly overseeing three of those four entities. So when she did not allow the head of Capitol Police to testify in the oversight committee, there was a glaring hole of information that wasn't available to the committee. She then shut down the oversight committee investigations to create the then primetime soap opera known as the then January 6th committee. So that's why she's afraid of us reconstituting this investigation, because we have always believed that one thing is clear is that there were intelligence reports that were given to the Capitol Police before January 6th that would have actually detailed that there should have been a more enhanced security apparatus around the Capitol at that time. And then also the fact that the Capitol, the National Guard was deployed by Donald Trump. They were authorized by Donald Trump. They were on the ground. They were on the grounds of Washington, D.C. on January 6th, but they were not allowed at the Capitol. And that is a key fact that she never wanted to have come public. So I think she's got a lot of things that she's concerned about now that Speaker Johnson is allowing a new investigative committee into everything that went on before, during, and after January 6th.
Now, can you just give me a little bit of background? Are you on this committee, Byron? I don't know. Are you requesting to be on this committee? What do you think this committee is going to find?
No, I'm not on the committee. It's actually going to be, as I understand it, it's being headed by Barry Loudermilk out of Georgia. And Barry has done incredible amounts of work into all of the details around it. The reason why I'm so versed in it is because, like I said, I was on the oversight committee when we had 2 congressional hearings into January 6th. And because of that, you know, I was able to really get into the details on all the things that occurred. So what I anticipate is that Chair Loudermilk is going to get into all of the briefings that were provided to the Speaker's office through the Capitol Police before January 6th, what the actual security parameters were during January 6th. And then what we now all know today was the abuse of power by the Biden Department of Justice, where they were overcharging Americans recklessly and I saw the clip you showed about the Andrew Jackson statue, while other people were just completely ignored. You had the Department of Justice that literally didn't throw the book at people. They were throwing 10 books at people because they were weaponizing that department for political purposes.
Yes. Okay. So we have demonstrable evidence from everyone, Kash Patel at the Department of Defense, to Police Chief Stephen Sund, saying that Nancy Pelosi withheld critical National Guard support on January 6th. I've seen the National Guard up close. I know you've seen the National Guard up close. There would be no January 6th with the National Guard there. It would not have happened. I don't care how many federal agents were there. I don't care how many Antifa people or BLM people dressed up as MAGA were there. I don't care how many Ray Epps were there. There would have been no riot. There would have been no breach of the Capitol if the National Guard had been deployed. So where does the actual blame lie for January 6th descending into a riot, Byron?
I've always believed it falls at the feet of Nancy Pelosi. And here's why. On January 4th, President Trump authorized the deployment of 10,000 National Guard troops to the nation's capital. He authorized them. Now, let's also take a step back. This is January 4, 2021. It's the height of COVID in Washington, D.C. There was really nobody in the nation's capital. So on January 4, Donald Trump authorizes 10,000 National Guard troops. On January 5, the President of the United States, he actually calls as a follow-up to basically say, what's going on with this deployment? Is it happening? At that point, there's an engagement with Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., where the mayor said she did not want the National Guard armed in the nation's capital. She wanted to put them on traffic duty. There's a letter that speaks to this. Now, let's expand that. Like I said, January 4, 2021, there's nobody in Washington because Washington was under a severe COVID lockdown run by the Democrats. There was no traffic in Washington, D.C. during this time. As somebody who works in D.C., if you've ever been to D.C., there's always traffic. But during COVID, nobody was coming into Washington, so there was no traffic. The mayor was putting them on traffic duty when there was no traffic. That's how stupid this was. Nancy Pelosi controls the security apparatus at that time because she was Speaker of the House. She could have easily had the National Guard on the Capitol grounds. She, for whatever reason, chose not to. That is a fact, because if she wanted National Guard troops there, they would have easily been there because they were already deployed in Washington, D.C. on the morning of January 6th. And this is how we know Nancy Pelosi has the ability to control the security apparatus. Because after January 6th, that's when the metal gates went up around the Capitol complex, and they were up for like 5 months. Nancy Pelosi had the National Guard deployed to the Capitol for 5 months after, about, I think, 3 to 4 or 5 months after January 6th. There were reports that our National Guardsmen were sleeping in parking garages, and they weren't getting any food. And you had members of Congress taking the National Guard food and started to complain to the Speaker, why were you housing them in the parking garages when it's freezing outside at that time? And it's not like our hotels in D.C. were full, because nobody was coming to Washington, D.C. Interesting that the Democrats will give money to house illegals in hotels, but Nancy Pelosi wouldn't even give resources to our National Guardsmen to stay in hotels until people started complaining about the treatment that they were getting to be at the Capitol post January 6th. So I firmly believe the reason why the National Guard was not there was because Nancy Pelosi didn't want them there. And if you talk about the Capitol Police, on January 6th, they had the lightest footprint of any deployment of the Capitol Police that I've seen in my 5.5 years in Congress. So that's what went on. The person with the real answers is, to me, the head of the Capitol Police and Nancy Pelosi. One last thing, and I know I'm going long, Bunny, but this is important.
Please.
We had testimony in the Oversight Committee that there was an intelligence report that was relayed from the FBI to the Capitol Police. We have no idea what happened with respect to when the Capitol Police received the intelligence report. And this was about 10 days before January 6th. And I'm doing this from memory right now, about 10 days before. We don't know what the discussion was of the Capitol Police leadership with that intelligence report. We don't know what the conversations were between the head of the Capitol Police and the Speaker of the House and the Sergeant of Arms. We have no idea, because Nancy Pelosi would never allow them to testify in open hearing.
There's so much that we just don't know. There's so many mysteries of that day. I really do hope, for the good of the country, that we were able to unravel some of it, because this was something that obviously was set to destroy the MAGA movement, the America First movement. It was designed in order to put President Trump in prison. They certainly tried. And there are very curious moments here. You just brought up, like, the fact that there's so much evidence that we've never seen before. I assume we'll get that evidence. Nancy Pelosi here in this clip, I'll just play you like 2 seconds, if you'll allow me, Congressman. She says while the crowds are marching to the Capitol, she says, "I've been waiting for this trespassing at the U.S. Capitol."
Oh, he comes, I'm going to punch him out. This is my moment.
I would pay to see
I've
that.
been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm going to punch him out, and I'm going to go to jail.
I've been waiting for this? Trespassing on the Capitol grounds? What a weird thing to say. That's what they ended up charging, of course, every January 6er with. And then everything from AOC, Cower saying she's hiding in her office before the Capitol was even breached, that someone was like banging on her door. The whole thing, the optics of the whole thing are strange. And it just feels like a setup. Everything from the pipe bomber to being unable to like identify who that individual is, to Kamala Harris's movements that day and them never even talking about it or acknowledging it. The whole thing seems just insanely strange. And we just found out that there were almost 300 FBI agents at the Capitol. So will we get, Congressman, finally some answers here about what
I believe
happened?
so. Look, I know Barry Loudermilk to be a serious man. He is somebody who's really thoroughly investigated this, probably more than anybody on Capitol Hill. And I think that his committee, I spoke with Speaker Johnson about this maybe about a month ago, because I had constituents in my district, some of whom were arrested on January 6th, had to go through some of the kangaroo courts that were set up in the DC district. And so they've had questions about this committee. I spoke with the speaker. The speaker said they were working through getting it up and running. I'm glad to see that it is now up and running. And I know Barry Ladonick is going to get to the bottom of this. So I expect a lot of answers are going to come out of this committee, real answers, not the soap opera stuff that they were trying to push to once again weaponize Congress and weaponize the Justice Department to try to defeat Donald Trump from becoming the 47th president. And quite frankly, aren't we all happy that Kamala Harris isn't president? Because it would be an unmitigated disaster if she was. That being said, I think the select committee is going to do a tremendous job. I have real confidence in Barry Ladonick that he's going to be able to deliver answers.
Great. Thank you, Congressman. Last very quick question on this. Does Nancy Pelosi get a chance to testify here? Can they call Nancy Pelosi, or would that be something that is a no-no in Congress?
Theoretically, we could. I'm not sure where the committee is going to go with that.
Yeah.
I would love to actually see her under oath to see what she has to say. But we'll see. I can't really speak to that. I think it's going to be much more important to get a lot of the detailed documents from before that day leading up to that afternoon on the Capitol grounds. That's going to be critical. And I think the other thing that's going to be critical is a lot of the information post January 6th, where you had January 6 detainees who were having their constitutional rights violated by the Department of Justice and by the Bureau of Prisons, where they were blocking a lot of these individuals from being able to gather information on their case and actually communicate with their attorneys. And real quick, Benny, I know it's supposed to be a short answer, but it's not, but so much happened here. The last thing that really needs to be uncovered is that the radical left in the legal community was blackballing attorneys. They were blackballing attorneys if they decided to represent Americans who were arrested on January 6th. That is a heinous black stain on the legal community. But that was happening in the United States. And obviously it happened with people who were representing either Steve Bannon or et cetera. But there's a real cabal in the bar associations around the United States that were blackballing attorneys who decided to represent Americans in a legal proceeding. And that's outrageous. That needs to be uncovered as well.
Completely outrageous. I guess look forward to all of it. I mean, something that we've studied quite a bit. We've spent the last couple of years doing our level-headed best to tell the truth about it. Man, some of these clips have aged like fine wine. You've been in many of them, Congressman, and we appreciate your honesty and truth on this subject. Since you are running for the governor of Florida, we have to ask you about Attorney General James Uthmeier, who made a pretty big announcement last night. Tonight, we filed a lawsuit against Gavin Newsom in California in the U.S. Supreme Court because of their so-called sanctuary policies that are harming Floridians. Used a number of examples, too many to count, of sanctuary city aliens getting driver's license, coming to Florida, killing people, harming Floridians. And this is obviously a huge problem. And now he has posted this little graphic here explaining how California's policies of chaos and allowance of criminal aliens is harming Florida, and that's his standing in order to sue California. This is pretty interesting. Where do you stand on this, Byron?
I completely agree. What California has allowed, and it's not just them, it's Illinois, it's New York as well, but what they have allowed has obviously not just led to death on the roadways of Florida, but it's harming Americans all across the country. I would anticipate that attorneys generals around the country are going to join this lawsuit because what needs to occur once and for all, and I think this is something where it's obviously going to fast track to the Supreme Court, but these sanctuary jurisdictions have to be shut down. They're in violation of federal immigration law. They're in violation of federal law. And look, I am a constitutionalist. I am a federalist. I believe that there are certain powers that the federal government have. Most powers are reserved for the states, but this is not one of them. The states have a responsibility to follow federal law when it comes to immigration. And you have jurisdictions like California that simply are not. That needs to be shut down. I completely support this lawsuit against California. I would expect other attorneys generals around the country to follow suit and join the suit.
Would you do a debate with Gavin Newsom over this?
Of course. I mean, come on. I don't think he's ready. He thinks that he is, but he's not.
What is the end result here, though? A state suing another state. Help me out. Like, what would the end result mean? What would be like the Supreme Court says California can no longer be a sanctuary state? That makes a lot of sense to me. I don't even understand how that concept works. I don't claim to be the smartest guy here, Congressman, or the highest IQ. I don't have some credential from an Ivy League school, but I can tell you that this is insanity, that a bunch of like states just are like, those are federal laws we refuse to follow. I thought we settled this question a long time ago, that like you're not allowed to do that.
Well, I mean, look, in a government like ours, nothing's ever fully settled. You have to constantly enforce these matters over time. And it really requires the will of the people to make sure that they're being followed. But in short, yeah, I think this is something that's going to end up at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court could either render a full and broad decision around blocking sanctuary jurisdictions from existing, yes, or they can do a smaller version around the CDL license issue, which is a real one, and stopping jurisdictions like California and New York from issuing those licenses. That's really going to be up to the court, but this is something that's definitely going to go there.
Okay. I have to ask about the bombshell news yesterday at the Supreme Court, since we are talking about it, Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act, and some of these districts in the South, primarily, that have been gerrymandered and rigged based on racial lines, which seems insane to me that that's something that you can even do inside of a democracy like ours. It seems patently actually racist to do that by government fiat. I can't imagine that happening to any other race, and I can't imagine anyone being able to morally justify that. Ketanji Brown Jackson has tried to do it by saying that Black Americans are disabled. These are her exact words. Here's the headline from Breitbart. Ketanji Brown Jackson refers to Black Americans as disabled. And that's why Black Americans need special districts in the South, in states that vote for Trump by 40 points, in order to have representation. Do you agree with this, Congressman?
No, I don't. And look, you have, I'm a Black man. I represent a white district, predominantly white. My district's about 82% white. Wesley Hunt, he's a Black man. He represents a predominantly white district. Burgess Owens, he's a Black man. He represents a predominantly white district. I think one of the attorneys in that case, from what I heard yesterday, was essentially saying like the reason why they had to keep Section 2 is because the data was showing that white Democrats were not voting for Black Democrats. Well, that's a race issue in the Democrat Party. What does that have to do with the rest of the United States? I think secondarily, if you're going to talk to the history of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, it is clear that there was definitely a time in our country's history where Black people in the United States were discriminated against. There was segregation against Black people. You had, poll tests, poll taxes, etc. And that is why in the 65 Voting Rights Act, Section 2, as well as the other sections, were created, because they were needed at a time in our country where you had very deep racial divisions along the lines of segregation and racism. That's beyond a fact. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. The question in front of the court is, do you need those provisions in today's America? And what I firmly have believed, not just with this one, but with pre-clearance, which is, I believe, Section 6 of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, is that those sections are no longer needed because America is just a very different place today. We are not the same country we are in 2025 that we were in 1965 or 1925. That is just an empirical fact. Nobody should be able to question that, except if you weaponize race for political gain, like the radical left does. We're not the same America. That is very clear. And that's why I think the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing, and they're going to strike down Section 2 of the 1965 Civil Rights Act, the way they struck down, I believe it was Section 6 of the Civil Rights Act, 6 or 5, that dealt with pre-clearance. And so that's where we're going. I think this is a good decision if they make this decision. We'll see what the court does. I don't know what they're going to do, but it looks like from the testimony that was happening yesterday, that appears to be the direction that the court is going to go.
Bro, is the Democrat Party even real? Final question. Like, between this and the rigging of the census and the counting of criminal aliens in Democrat districts and in places like Illinois and California, between the obscene amount of gerrymandering and cheating. Just look at the state maps of Illinois. Look at New England. There's like not a Republican represented in any of the 13, barely a Republican. I think there's maybe like one or two in the original 13 colonies. Yet there's 40% of the vote in New England is Republican. You know, that is that's an obscenity that the entire East Coast goes blue. There's not a single Republican representing any of it. And 40% of those Republicans are just, you want to talk about disenfranchisement? That's disenfranchisement right there. And then, you know, and Democrats have just you have a 1 or 2 seat majority because of it. Will Republicans ever wake up and actually like start fighting back and show that this country is actually, I have the map on my wall, this is actually a very red country and a very conservative country where Trump won 90% of the counties in America, plus the popular vote in all 7 swing states? It's time for Republicans to fight back. Yeah.
Well, I think that's already happening with what happened in Texas, where they redrew those congressional districts. You're having that happen, I think, in about 7 or 8 other states around the country. We'll see if Florida does an adjustment. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, in short, Republicans have decided that, you know what, you got to fight fire with fire. Democrats are notorious for gerrymandering their states, to the point where there's either a very limited Republican representation or no Republican representation, like Massachusetts. In Illinois, in Southern Illinois, they created a congressional district that looks like a sword or a spike, simply because they wanted to make another Democrat district. If you look at Illinois' maps, they basically put Chicago into strips and to run the strips out to the suburban areas, just so they can get more Democrats elected to Congress in Illinois. So the Democrats have been at this game for a long time. Republicans, frankly, under the leadership of Donald Trump, are finally getting into this game. And I will add, you have to give great credit to Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida from the work he did in our last redistricting effort, because that actually, in my view, and a lot of people's views, it actually helped us have a House majority by the work that Governor DeSantis did when we redistricted Florida. Last point I'll make on this, and again, in the Oversight Committee, we had a bill last Congress that would have changed how we do the apportionment of congressional districts. And it basically would have said that we will count everybody in the country per the Constitution. But for the purposes of setting congressional districts, we will only count American citizens and naturalized citizens, those who have the ability to vote in our elections. And when that bill was proposed in the Oversight Committee, people should go find the hearing on that. That was one of the craziest hearings I've ever been in, and I've been in some doozies, because the Democrats were basically saying that there is no way they could allow that to happen. And our response was, so you want illegal aliens to be counted for the purpose of setting congressional districts? And their answer is basically yes. Yes, they want illegals to be used for the purposes of setting congressional districts for American citizens. It's outrageous, the stance that the Democrats have taken. So to your point earlier, like, are they even real? I actually think the answer is no. I think that you have probably a lot of old school Democrats who believe in some of the old principles of that party. They're good people. They're Americans. They love this country. They might disagree on policy with us Republicans and conservatives, but there is a strain of radicalism. It's really European socialist radicalism in that party. And that's what leads the Democrats right now. And that's why they're going to continue to lose elections, because they have chosen radicalism over the American people.
We have the congressional district that you're talking about right here. There it is. Show that, Klein. Thank you. I don't know why it's so hard to find an Illinois congressional map, but here we go. There it is. Look at this district that Byron's talking about. Look at this one right here. He's talking about the little skinny, like scorpion tail district that goes from East St. Louis to Champaign, Illinois, where the university is. Look at that. Yeah. Look at that. I mean, there are so many atrocious districts here that you could talk through. This looks like, you know, you got little kids, I got little kids. This looks like my kids were like coloring. My 3-year-old was coloring in her book over like a gravel road when he was drawing this district. I think J.B. Pritzker's actually made that joke. He's like made jokes that like he has little autistic children like color in the districts. He made that joke on Colbert. Look at that thing. That is such an insult.
It's crazy.
That is crazy.
What they did with this one, I think
map.
with Southern Illinois is Springfield, where the state capital is.
Yeah.
And it goes to Champaign, like you said. So they basically wrote a district for the state capital. And I think Champaign's University of Illinois, whatever it is. I'm not totally familiar with Illinois. So that's what they did. The red around that's actually Mary Miller's district. We used to have 2 Republicans in Southern Illinois. They drew that district to force a primary fight. Now Mary Miller's represents Southern Illinois. But that's what they did in Illinois. It's crazy. Them in Massachusetts are probably the most gerrymandered. New York tried to do an even worse map, but even the state Supreme Court in New York said you can't do that.
Wow.
Like, that's how far the Democrats have tried to push this thing. And so it's really bad. Republicans have gotten into the game, thankfully. And I think the key thing is going to be the census when it's done. That's going to be critical. And the president of the United States, when the next census is done, is going to be incredibly important to the future of the congressional makeup of this country. And I'll add, I think that when we're talking about setting congressional districts for apportionment, you can't count illegal aliens. They don't have the right to vote in our country. But that's what the Democrats want to do. And more people need to be speaking on that point.
What a map. I mean, look at that. You can see right here in the map, so Byron called out this state, the way that Illinois is run. You can see like 4 or 5, maybe 6 Democrat seats that should not exist, that have just been carved into existence by blatant, obscene cheating in Illinois. Just show people that map when they say that Republicans cheat. Just show people this map. Thank you, Byron. Godspeed, man. Look forward to seeing you on the road here in a couple of weeks. We're going to be doing some events in Florida. We'll announce them a little closer to the event dates. Here's Byron Donalds' X account. Obviously, you're probably already following him, but you should jump in there. He's got millions of followers here on X. The next governor of Florida, Byron Donalds.
Thank you, Benny. Take it easy.
Ooh, baby. Grand jury expected to indict John Bolton for transmitting classified documents. As you know, I have been on a red eye this morning. I left New York. I got up in New York bright and early, a little before 5 a.m. Caught a car out to the airport to be back home to you and to be doing our show from the comfort of our studio. We always love that. Ladies and gentlemen, Blackout Coffee will be the one getting me through the day. Blackout Coffee is just damn good coffee made here by Americans for Americans. It is a wonderful brew. It powers us. There are many people that get powered by different things. I have thrown away all the other junk, all the energy drinks and all that crap. It's packed full of sugar. It's not good for you. Blackout Coffee, 100% natural, roasted right here in America by American patriots. And, ladies and gentlemen, it's delicious. It tastes like real coffee for real hard workers who want to build the American dream. If you believe in hard work, American values, and coffee that actually tastes like coffee, go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny and use the code Benny for 20% off your first order. Support the American dream and drink Blackout. That's blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Stop settling and start drinking real coffee. Okay, let's go ahead and read here, shall we? A federal grand jury convened on Wednesday afternoon to consider charges against former National Security Advisor John Bolton over his alleged sharing of highly sensitive classified material on a private server. Everything old is new again. Everything new is old again. And it circles round and round. Time is a flat circle. The proceeding comes 2 months after the FBI agents raided Bolton's suburban home in Maryland in Washington, D.C. to search for evidence. The Trump critics proposed theft of highly sensitive national security information, which he obviously did. He's John Bolton. Justice Department officials expected an indictment to be handed up early Wednesday or Thursday, that would be today, with one telling the Post that the case against the 76-year-old is airtight. Bolton is accused of using a private AOL email address to transmit classified information and record diary-like notes in his daily activities and assessments throughout the time as President Trump's first administration. The account was hacked by an unidentified foreign entity, goodness, at some point, according to the probable cause warrant unsealed last month, meaning that some of the secret information may have ended up in the hands of foreign governments or bad actors. The warrant redacted other information related to the hack. Goodness. Investigators also found classified information during their raids, with agents confiscating documents related to weapons of mass destruction, U.S. mission to the United Nations, government strategic communication, and secret travel memos, according to court records. Goodness. Even if Bolton had no intention of releasing the information, he could be held liable. The sensitive documents were left lying around where anyone could walk into his house and get it, a legal provision that applies his personal email account as well. Well, I mean, I don't like what, what do you want from me? This is exactly what they got. This is exactly what they tried to get Trump for in raiding Mar-a-Lago. It's amazing, the weapons that are formed against you. It's crazy, man. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's going on with John Bolton. It is beautiful to see justice in Washington, D.C., and I guess we'll see it today, hopefully, with Bolton. We didn't see justice with Big Balls, which makes me really angry, actually. This story has my blood boiling. Teen who jumped Doge staffer Edward Big Balls Constantine avoid jail, sentenced simply to probation. They left Big Balls bloody and lying in the street, and 2 youths in Washington, D.C., who beat him within an inch of his life, pled guilty to simple assault. A boy and a girl, both 15, from Hyattsville, Maryland, were sentenced to probation by a D.C. judge. Totally and completely insane ruling that obviously has deep political ramifications. The judge is a massive DEI hire Biden appointee. Judge Kendra Briggs has allowed 2 teens, 2 youths, as Trump would say, who beat up an administration staffer to avoid jail. Her job is to rehabilitate, not punish. Dude, the court systems are so broken. The court systems are so broken. Here's Big Balls explaining what happened to him and what happened that day. Do we have that clip, ALX? No? Give me that clip of Big Balls explaining what happened that day, because I want him, like, he was on Jesse Waters. Pretty awesome interview. Trump explaining that he's pretty angry about this, along with Caroline Leavitt, who said one of the big issues in D.C. is these juveniles, they get a slap on the wrist. This is what Caroline Leavitt said yesterday. This administration has a completely different philosophy. We need law and order. Their accomplices in the attempted carjacking and assault in a D.C. parking garage remain at large. Oh, okay. So they have accomplices. They know who they are. They haven't been arrested yet. And the people who left this young man bloodied and beaten are just set free. This is how you get this is a failed state. This is how you get a failed state. This is how you get a zero trust society. It's just BLM and Antifa riots all over again. This is precisely what happened. This is how we started off the show. I hope you can figure things out and be ready for consequences, he told the defendants via video link, and thanked the courts and the police for their quick work. So what are the consequences? The consequences are not these guys going free. Can they be charged in federal court? I mean, could you bring federal? This happened in D.C., right? So could the DOJ charge? So are these just the local charges? Very interesting. I need to study this a little more. Producers, brief me on this. Are these just local? Are this is the local attorney and the judge just wasn't able to, and we just got a bad judge? Is that what happened? Because it is in D.C., so I guess it'll all have to be federal. I'm just wondering if there's a superseding charge that perhaps you could actually get him on something. Anyway, here's President Trump on Big Balls.
Violent crimes, sir. Here in D.C., a judge has given the 2 teenagers that beat up ex-Doge staffer Big Balls probation.
It's incredible.
And no jail time. Is this justice?
Jeanine Pirro is doing a fantastic job, and she is beside herself. because you have these radical left judges that they beat the hell out of this guy. And there was many people against this one guy who was really trying to protect his girlfriend. He didn't want his hooded over the door but they really beat him up badly. That just happened, right? Yeah. Wow, that's terrible. I think the judge should be ashamed of himself. That's a big problem. You know, they can do their job, and then they go into a court, and the people are protected by these, I don't know where they come from. Where do these people come from? Where do the judges come from? I want to compliment on behalf of Pam and Todd and all of us because, Cash, I think that Janine has done a fantastic job. And the case I heard was like flawless. It's a flawless case. They have them on tape. They have everything. And then a judge gives them a little probation. These are rough guys. And they're young. And if that happens, they're going to grow up. They're going to be real bad. They're going to cause a lot of problems. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
So, Sergio Gore has just gotten back.
Makes you angry. Why? You know, if the purpose of running DC like a hellscape like this is to diminish the amount of big balls, Edward Corsentines, who want to serve in the federal government. Why would you ever allow your son? You don't want your son coming home looking like this. Why would you ever allow your son to go work in Washington, D.C.? Why would any good person want to work in D.C.? Why would any good-hearted American want to come to this lawless hellscape where this can happen to you and nothing happens to the assailants? That is the goal. That is the intended purpose here. To signal good people do not come to D.C. We'll maim you, we'll kill you, we'll beat you, and nothing will happen to the criminals. This is exactly the same racket they tried to run with Charlie Kirk's murder and assassination. Don't worry, nothing will happen. We'll protect them. Jimmy Kimmel, it was like a MAGA guy. Don't worry. Go do more of it. It's totally evil, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few minutes of Big Balls and his one and only interview talking about this. And this man's a hero. He also deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I've asked that at the White House. We'll see what happens.
You shouldn't need big balls to feel safe. Edward Corstein joins me now. So what happened that night?
Yeah, I was hanging out with a group of my friends late at night, and at about 3 a.m., we were wrapping up, and I was walking one of my friends back to her car, and as we're walking to the car, there's a group of 10 guys right across the street, and as we get to the car and she begins to fumble for the keys, they start shouting at us, and really quickly I knew something was really off about the situation. So she unlocks the car, I rush her into the driver's seat, she's able to close the door behind her and lock the doors. And, you know, right as I turn around, they run up on me, and they're just a few feet away. And they slam me against the car. They start throwing a bunch of punches. I keep my hands up. I'm just like, all right, I'm getting a lot of punches here. I'm just trying to protect my head the best way that I can. And, you know, luckily the whole thing didn't last too long. The police showed up pretty quickly. So I was very fortunate. I only came out with a broken nose and a concussion. It could have been a lot worse.
Oh, my God. All right, so they were wailing on you. Did they get you down on the ground?
No. I knew that if I got down on the ground, it'd get way worse. So I was like, all right, no matter what, I just have to stay on my feet.
All right, so stay on your feet. You protect the head because you know what? Big Balls also has big brains, and that's very important. And you saved this lady friend of yours. You kind of saved more than her car. You might have saved her life.
Yeah, it was a really bad situation. And, you know, the carjacking didn't make a lot of sense because, like, it was like the cheapest car on the block. So it felt like there might have been something else going on there.
Okay, well, you're a brave guy and you're a lucky guy, and we're glad you're okay. And in a way, it kind of triggered a big crime crackdown in D.C. And in a way, you've saved a lot of lives in D.C. Why did you come down to D.C. in the first place?
Well, I feel this great responsibility to serve my country. My grandfather was this KGB double agent for the Americans. And he died so that I could come here and live in this free country that I love so much. And so when I started seeing these problems that we've got as a government, like this $37 trillion national debt and counting, and the interest on that is just like absurd, I was like, wow, this is insane. Is there any way that I can help solve this? And in this administration, there was a chance. So of course, when I saw the opportunity, I signed right up.
So you got the big ones from your grandfather.
I think I did, yeah.
He was a double agent. What exactly was he doing?
Well, he worked for Line X, which is like this sophisticated KGB line, but he actually joined the CIA, and he gave the CIA a bunch of valuable intel right around the Cold War.
Wow, what a patriot.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, also a patriot. You saw him shake hands with the president the other day. How did you feel about it?
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Did you hear that? I don't know about the whole CIA thing. I don't know the kid, right? I don't know the kid. You're going to have to ask ALX. Yeah, I have to ask ALX. I don't know the kid. ALX does, though. ALX, where's our exclusive interview with Big Balls? I would love to get that interview set up. Come on, ALX, let's go. Exactly what we were talking about. Young men are just not going to be serving their country if this is the way that they're treated. In the military, in Washington, D.C., that's the point. They're trying to prove a point here. But hopefully we can fight back on this one. We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We will see. Right now, it is Medicare's annual enrollment period. It's a very big deal. Every single year, millions of seniors 64 and older face the same challenge. Choosing the right Medicare plan can be overwhelming and sometimes bonkers. And, well, you want to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. If you're already on Medicare or enrolling soon, talk to someone who's actually on your side, somebody who can help you with what plan will work best for you in 2026. And remember, plans change every single year. So you need people that you can trust. You need to talk to Chapter. Chapter can help you, on average, save thousands of dollars per year. This is the kind of stuff that isn't fun to deal with, but Chapter can make it easy for you. They can review your Medicare options today in 20 minutes. Plan that's best for you in 2026. Chapter will help you switch. So speak today to a trusted Chapter advisor by dialing pound 250 and say the word savings to take control of your healthcare. That's pound 250. Say the keyword savings and speak to someone at Chapter today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Wesley Hunt, who has some big announcements since he was last on the program. He's running for Senate in the state of Texas. I'm very proud of him for that. It's something that obviously we need to preserve our red states. We have been traveling to a lot of blue states. We've been to Illinois. We've been to Portland. I just got back from New York this morning. It's good to fight on offense in states like that. But there's no such thing as a permanent blue state. There's no such thing as a permanent red state. You must be constantly vigilant in a state like Florida and in a state like Texas. The left would have loved nothing more than to steal a Senate seat or a congressional seat in these red kingdoms, and we're not going to let it happen. Wesley Hunt is the man with the plan to stop it. Here we go. Congressman, welcome back to the program, and a very happy Thursday morning to you. Congratulations on the Senate announcement. Why don't we start with that? What's the state of the race?
I think we're looking pretty good, brother. You know me. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten in this race if I didn't see a clear path for us to be the next senator from the great state of Texas. And I tell you what, I think that the people here in Texas, specifically the primary voters, they're looking for someone like me who is a young patriot, who is an America First fighter. Keep in mind that President Trump won the great state of Texas by 15 points, which means that this is absolutely MAGA country. And as the first person in the country to endorse President Trump on November the 15th, 2022, I was one of his day ones, especially on this last run. I was a surrogate for the president, traveled all over the country with the president. I was one of his top surrogates all over the country. I caucused for him in Iowa. I think that's the kind of America First fighter that people want to see here in Texas. And quite frankly, before I got in the race, I was already polling in the low 20s against a 24-year incumbent. Been around for 24 years. You know, when John Cornyn first got elected to office, brother, I was actually playing Little League soccer, Pop Warner football, drinking Capri Suns, drinking Ecto Cooler and orange slices when he first got into this seat. And I think it's time for the next generation of leadership like us, brother, to step into the fray and to lead for the future for the America First agenda. Our Secretary of State is in his early 50s. Our Secretary of War is in his mid 40s. Our Vice President is 41 years old. And you know what this resembles?
It resembles our founding fathers that were in their 20s and 30s that fought for the very soul of this nation. And we are in the exact same place this year at this time, and it's time for us to step up and get into the fight. And that's why I announced my candidacy for the United States Senate.
I just love that answer. It's exactly the right answer, because when you stick around in politics too long, and listen, I do have a couple things against John Cornyn. I don't like his stance on the Second Amendment. I don't like, he's attacked us on he through the Biden era, he would constantly be attacking us, his team on social media, which is an insane thing to do. He was obviously trying to be anti-Trump during that era, thinking that they could maybe reconstitute the Bush era. That's never coming back. The McCain, Romney, Bush loser era is never coming back. America First is here, and it's here to stay. And with that means an entire new generation of Republican Party that isn't going to be pushed around or cowed by the left into, permanent minority status in politics, because we are the majority in this country. It's great to see people actually straight up say it. And I'll tell you one anecdotal story.
Yeah.
Okay. So beside all the beside weirdly coming after us on social media, which is just such a small petty thing to do. Yeah. There's not. It's tough to be a conservative influencer out there without having the Republican senator from Texas coming after you during the Biden era. I watched this guy at the RNC. So it's I got to sit back at the RNC and sort of see how various members of Congress and people move. You're the senior senator from Texas at the Republican National Convention. Yeah. You should be loud and proud, man. You should be rolling. You should be strutting. You should be rolling in. You should be, mighty from this state and from the proud Republic of Texas. Yeah. Dude, nobody even recognized him. Mm-hmm. He was just shuffling around. Nobody even knew him. There was no energy. It was it was an affront to everything that I believe Texas is, right? And so that's just my story. So I'd love to see him out. And Congressman,
I want to add to that too. Let's talk about the RNC. Yeah. There are two people from Texas that actually spoke at the RNC. That was myself, and it was the great Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cornyn didn't even get a speaking slot at the RNC, and he is the senator from Texas. That's really all you need to know. The party has left him. He is a Bush-era Republican, and it is clear that the primary voter wants to see something different. Brother, imagine spending $25 million over the course of the past few months and still being in second place. Imagine being a 24-year incumbent, polling in the low 30s and bragging about it when you should be in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. I can tell you right now that in a Republican primary, Ted Cruz is probably polling in the 80s and 90s, and nobody's going to be able to touch him. In fact, Ted Cruz won't even get a primary voter, a primary at all, because a primary challenger at all, because you know what? He votes with Texas. He stands with Texas. And when I got into this race, something that was very interesting, brother, and that is, Ken Paxton's team did not attack me at all. The people that attacked me were John Cornyn's team.
Yeah.
I found that to be very, very interesting. They said that Wesley is a legend in his own mind, which I think is absolutely hilarious, because these were people that have never served this country a day in their lives. They were never shot at by a Russian-made 50 caliber Dishka. They did not fly 55 combat air missions in Baghdad. They did not go to West Point. And they are attacking me, and I'm somebody that's going to die for this country. And I found it to be very interesting. And it really lit a fire under my behind, because at the end of the day, I realized this is exactly what I need to be doing. I am literally firing for effect. I am right over the target zone if I'm pissing off the right people. And that's exactly the kind of fighter that Texans want to see.
I can show you why they're attacking you. Here's the data right here. So this is the Senate run. You are polling the strongest of anyone against the Democrat that they want to put into this Senate seat.
Yeah.
And Texas is always a scary close. Doesn't matter who's running. It's always a little too close for comfort for me. And you're looking great in these polls. And I think Republicans are going to see that.
Well, the reason why it's so important too, Benny, is because this is an off-cycle election, and the President Trump is not going to be on top of the ticket, and turnout is going to be very, very low. And that's why we have to be concerned. Look, if this were a presidential year with Trump on top of the ticket, I really wouldn't be too concerned about it. But that is absolutely not the case. And we have got to keep this seat red. And at the end of the day, I am already outperforming my two competitors And bro, this was taken and this poll was done before I even got in the race. What we need is an America First fighter that can win the primary, that the primary voter appreciates, respects, and love because of my conservative bona fides, and also somebody that can easily win the general election without the party spending hundreds of millions of dollars. See, this is what you call a no-brainer. And I think when given the option, the Republican primary voter is going to look at me and look at someone like me and look at the future and think about the future and say, you know what, this is the right kind of guy that could lead us into the future, for the next few terms. And that's why I love the fact that, brother, we're on the high end of the millennial scale. This is why it's so important for us to give our best years, our strongest years. The years that I could be out in private industry making a lot of money, I'm coming back to continue to serve my country. And my job is to do this: arrive, raise hell, and leave. Just like Stone Cold Steve Austin used to do the Back to the Attitude Era in WWE, and then allow somebody else to step into the fray and follow up and follow me, because this is not about being a career politician. This is not turning this into a retirement home waiting for the early bird special. This is about me serving this country in the vein of my founding fathers and arriving, doing exactly what's right for the American people and for Texas, and then leaving it for the next generation to step into the fray, because I do not want to do this for the rest of my life. How about we term limit John Cornyn, since these people refuse to sign a term limit pledge?
I would love to see that, because I hate to see, if it's anyone, whether it's Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, 50, I've been in Congress 50 years. I mean, it's crazy. We spent the morning talking about Nancy Pelosi snapping on that reporter, losing her mind over, it's just spiraling into senility because she's been there for so long, and it's just so corrupting. And by the way, none of these people have young children. And there's something deeply motivating when you have little kids and you go home to them and you want to preserve this country for them rather than being in a nursing home. It's a totally different motivation. You're exactly right. And we need more of it. You rightly listed Secretary of War, the Vice President, as people who are strongly in that camp of wanting to just save America for our children.
That's correct. And you and I get to go home and see this every single day. A lot of these guys haven't seen their children be small for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
And so now they've completely lost touch, because quite frankly, they're going to make laws that they aren't going to see come to fruition.
Exactly.
And then therefore they don't care about being a part of the uniparty war-mongering rhino class. They don't really care, because quite frankly, their children are grown and they're just trying to sit back and get rich. You and I have to look at our little babies every single day. And by the way, you have a very beautiful family, and I know you had a tough week last week, but what I know the first thing you were thinking about is, how do I protect my family? And that instinct is exactly what I want to bring to the United States Senate. How do I protect my children's future? Again, we have a $37 trillion deficit. We are running a $2 trillion annual deficit. We are spending more money than we spend on defense to service the debt. Think about that, to service the debt on our deficit. That's unbelievably terrible, not for us, but for our kiddos. And every time we leave them and kiss them goodbye, I know that my heart's in the right place to preserve a more perfect constitutional republic for them.
So let's talk about preserving that republic. Very interesting thing happened yesterday at the Supreme Court. It was a bad day for Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act that effectively gerrymanders based on race and makes up Democrat districts in the South based on extremely antiquated, 50, 60, and 70-year-old or 100-year-old laws of days gone by. And this thing was just decimated in the Supreme Court. There was really not a great argument for it. And the left is, of course, ready to lose their mind. They're also ready to lose potentially a swing of 24 different seats if they're able to get rid of Section 2 of the Voter Rights Act, which I would argue they absolutely should, because it's government mandated. It's government mandated racism, no matter what way you look at it. Yeah. Ketanji Brown Jackson,
my favorite,
one of the smartest people. She doesn't know what a woman is, but she does know that Black Americans are disabled.
No, Harvard graduate, 2 Harvard degrees. Can't tell you the difference between a man and a woman. Unbelievable.
What does that mean? This is her in her own words. Ketanji Brown Jackson refers to Black Americans as disabled during a Supreme Court hearing, arguing that Black Americans, without these special lines drawn, wouldn't be able to vote. Your take on this, Congressman?
See, this is the example of the liberal mind virus. This is an example of the soft bigotry of low expectations. And I recognize what happened in this country 150 years ago. I think you've heard me say this before. My great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation. His great-great-grandson, me, is a United States congressman in a white majority district that President Trump would have won by 20 points, and I won by 27 points. I think we are way beyond slavery. I think we are way beyond Jim Crow. And while this country has a checkered past, by the way, like every single civilized nation has a checkered past in the form of slavery and indentured servitude, at the end of the day, we have come a very long way, and I'm a prime example of that. Look, I am like the Democrats' worst nightmare. I want to be here because I don't want to be judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. And that's why I get to be a congressman in a white majority district. And quite frankly, as a Republican, nobody really cares what I look like. They care about how I'm going to vote. They care about securing the border. They care about our economy. Here in Texas, they care about the oil and gas industry, and how you look has absolutely nothing to do with it. And what I cannot stand about liberals is they think that black and brown people are too stupid to get an ID to vote. They think that black and brown people are simply going to vote Democrat because that's how we've done for the past few decades, and they don't realize that they are hemorrhaging black men because 1 in 3 black men in this last election voted for President Trump. What they have to understand is we want to be respected just like everybody else. I don't want to be handicapped. I don't want your gratis. What I want you to do is look at me and say, does this guy have grit, hard work, determination? And if so, you can be somebody in this great nation. And what I don't understand is this: if black people are handicapped so bad, and if black people can't be successful, and if white supremacy still exists, let me ask you a question. How did I get here? Why do I exist? And while the Democrats sit there and call me, oh, Wesley, you don't get it. Oh, Wesley, you're an Uncle Tom. You're this, you're that. Here's what I push back with. The people here in the great state of Texas recognize this. I'm a West Point graduate, flew 55 combat air missions in Baghdad, learned how to fly the most sophisticated helicopter that's ever existed, the A-64 Delta Apache, earned 3 master's degrees in 4 years from an Ivy League school, and I love my country. That's all they care about. And Democrats hate hearing that because that's called merit. It's the exact opposite of DEI. I don't ever want to be given anything because of the way I look. And I hate seeing a black woman who's a Supreme Court justice sit there and spew these kinds of liberal lies. And as somebody that has 2 Harvard degrees, she should literally just say, look, I'm probably a pretty smart person. I have 2 Harvard degrees. And yet she reverts back to being a victim. As a Supreme Court justice, she is still a victim. Last I checked, there are a lot of white people that are not Supreme Court justices. I say, let's get over it. Let's get in this boat together. Let's start rowing in the right direction. And let's talk about what it means to be an American.
Such a great answer. I gotta tell you, Congressman, if I were to say that on this program, how quickly we'd be canceled, right? Like, if that were my contention, I can't believe this was argued from the Supreme Court. I also can't believe that Ketanji Brown Jackson's saying, I don't know what a woman is. I mean, I guess I can. She said, I'm not a biologist.
She said, I'm not a biologist.
Yeah, but like, if I were to be like, all black Americans are disabled. Like, what? Like, it's like, what? Taking all the good parking spots. Like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about exactly? For it's like, it's so patently offensive to everyone. It'd be offensive to say about any group of people. But like, what era are we? What are we doing here exactly? I would just love it. What is Clarence Thomas's response to that? Like, I really wish I was at the Supreme Court to see Clarence Thomas's reaction to this.
And, and that's really interesting too. Clarence Thomas has been around since the early 90s. I mean, Clarence Thomas has been black for way longer than I have. And that guy is a Supreme Court justice and did it back before he was even popular. I mean, this guy has been around for a very long time. And he actually grew up in the same segregated South that my parents grew up in. And I think we always talk about Morgan Freeman's quote as well. He's like, do you want Black History Month? He goes, I don't want it. I just want History Month. Now, keep in mind that Morgan Freeman was old back when Driving Miss Daisy was done. So do you know how old he is today? because Drive Miss Daisy was a very long time ago, and he was old then. That guy grew up in a segregated Mississippi, and he has had the honor of playing God in movies. He has played the president in movies. He's done various voiceovers, and he's been black for a very long time because he understands that this is the only country in the world to where your race doesn't matter anymore. Are you good or are you not? And the thing about Democrats is this: they want to continue to keep the black vote under their thumb by thinking that black people are a victim and that white people are the people that are suppressing us to keeping everybody down. And you know what, Benny? You should be able to say whatever you want. And so if you want to say what I just said on your show, I will gladly sit next to you as your black friend, and I will gladly say he gets to say whatever he wants and not whatever he wants. Not only that, I completely agree with him. We had a man who was just murdered and assassinated for saying exactly that.
Yeah.
For sitting there and telling the truth, telling his truth, trying to have a conversation, sitting under a tent that said, "Prove me wrong." And by the way, if you listen to what he was saying, the dude was not wrong, and he is dead because of it. And now it is up to you and I to continue to fight against that, not as a white guy or as a black guy, but as brothers, but as Americans, as people that believe in this country, as equals, as God created us. This is the whole point of this construct, and continuing to move it forward. And you know what? I really hope Democrats continue to behave this way, and I really hope that they continue to not be able to identify the difference between a man and a woman, because that's the sanity check that we all want. If you can't tell me the difference between a man and a woman, then guess what? I don't want to hear about your policy. I don't want to hear about your ideas on Medicare. I don't want to hear about your ideas on the border, because you can't answer a very simple question. What's the difference between a man and a woman? Keep it up.
That's exactly right. I two really quick things there, Congressman. One, Morgan Freeman has played all of those incredible roles. You missed the CEO of Wayne Enterprises.
Oh, that's right.
Very important.
That's right.
Very important. We would never have had The Dark Knight.
That's right.
Without Morgan Freeman. Come on, man. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Very important role. And yet that wouldn't happen in a racist America. You got to understand. It wouldn't happen in a racist Gotham.
No, I mean he played the black president when there was a comet that was coming to the earth that was going to destroy everything. I mean, imagine that kind of pressure, you know?
Man, Bruce Almighty is a great movie too. It is a fantastic movie.
It's a good movie.
Okay. Since you brought up Charlie, I just want to end with this, because I was talking with Ro Khanna yesterday about it, and it was like, it's hard. It was hard for me to like break through on this note. There are Democrats in Congress that just refuse, they just refuse to do the moral thing and vote to disavow violence, say that what happened to Charlie was wrong. AOC and Ilhan Omar are among them. Now that they've seen a little bit of traction, they've then gone out to the media and have been just savaging Charlie and his legacy and his memory. It stings. We were just at the White House for that Medal of Freedom ceremony. Obviously, we're close to Erica, we're close to the family, we're close to the entire universe, and we were close to Charlie. I don't want that in my politics. I want there to be some extra. I want there to be humanity, and room for that. But you can't unite with evil, and you can't make peace with people that want to kill you. Yeah. And so, what's to be done here, Congressman? Because unlike most members of Congress, you've actually faced down people that want to kill you. How would you approach this current moment?
Well, we have to keep praying. This is spiritual warfare that we are engaging in. You are correct. It is pure evil. To watch someone get assassinated in that vein is something that we can't ever forget. And I'm gonna give you an example, brother, to give you a little bit of hope. You see, my wife and my three kids, they went out to a farm. It's called Dewberry Farms. It's not far from Houston, Texas, and they went up there to kind of go to a pumpkin patch and to kind of hang out with their grandparents who came down from Iowa. And my wife came back and reported that all she saw around Dewberry Farms, right outside a suburb here of Houston, Texas, are freedom shirts and MAGA hats, and people that are standing up and standing up for Charlie, and young people that are stepping up, and thousands and thousands and thousands of college-age students that want to continue the path and the hope of Turning Point, and people realizing that freedom isn't free, and people are going to die for it. But if we don't make sure that their deaths are in vain, then what are we living for? And the hope that we are seeing is actually coming straight to fruition. Charlie's name is bigger than it ever could have been. More people have heard of his name now than ever could have heard it. And the Lord works in mysterious ways. And the reason why that I'm actually running for Congress and running for Senate and why I stay in the fight is because I've lost a lot of West Point classmates and I've lost a lot of friends in war. And I get up every single day and realize that we are here because we're standing on the shoulders of giants, the people that shed blood for our freedom. And we get to wake up every single day and put our feet on free, sovereign American soil and breathe free, sovereign American air because our fellow Americans actually died for it. People like Charlie actually died for our freedoms to be able to speak freely and have our own religion and practice our own Christianity and love our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. People like him died for it. My West Point classmates died for it. And we will not ever allow their sacrifice to be in vain. And that's all we can do is look to the future, trust Jesus, and realize that he is in control and he will always turn what was meant for evil into good.
Beautiful words. And totally correct.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want more correct and hot takes, you got to follow Wesley Hunt right here. He's got nearly 500,000 subscribers on X. He's running for Senate in the great state of Texas. Here is Wesley Hunt's website right here. An America First fighter. Join the fight. He's a friend of our program, and very proud of him. Godspeed, Congressman.
God bless you, brother. Thank you very much.
The Arc de Trump. Arc de Trump. Should I ask Wesley about this? But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump planning a giant arch, a beautiful new monument. Can it be done in time for America 250 celebrations? We'll see. Everybody who was in the Oval Office, I was not, but everybody who was invited in the Oval Office after Charlie's Medal of Freedom ceremony said that Donald Trump was obsessed with his new Arch de Trump, and that he plans this massive monument in there's a perfect location for it right in front of Arlington National Cemetery. And it would really be a beautiful capstone to the city that is deserving of a new, beautiful neoclassical monument. Apparently, there is major renderings of it. Donald Trump living out every boy's dream, being able to play with giant architectural blocks and make these things real. Okay, I guess there's a. I guess we have some video of it. Is Donald Trump? Is this what you want to do? This is what you did. This was me with Lincoln Logs. This is every young man's dream. Okay, this is it. Okay, here we go. Is this video of Trump at the dinner? Trump Arch dinner. All right, let's go.
The stone is a little different color when you get up to the middle. But anyway, they stopped here. And then they were, in 1902, they were going to put a statue of Robert E. Lee up. Would have been okay with me. A lot of people wouldn't have liked it. Would have been okay with me. Would have been okay with a lot of the people in this room, but they didn't do that. And so for years and years it sat, and every time somebody rides over that beautiful bridge going right to the Lincoln Memorial, it's so beautiful, right? It's, they literally say, something's supposed to be here. And so we have versions of it, sizes of it, and it's going to be really beautiful. I think it's going to be fantastic. There's a rendering of what it will look like. You have three sizes. That would be the largest one. This is just came out of what it would look like in either of the three, any of the three sizes, which is right here. I don't know if you can see. So that's Lady Liberty. Lady, did you ever hear of Lady Liberty? On top. But, so the sizes would be very different. That is Lincoln. And this is sort of facing this way. And so we have this direct line. They did this into that. So this would be, I go, small, medium, and large. And whichever one will look good. I happen to think the large one's much larger. Why are you shocked? So we're gonna, just.
Okay. Small, medium, and large. The comedian president. It's just like, it's just weird. What do we do? We don't deserve him. There we go. Here's some other shots of the dinner. President Trump announcing what he's planning on doing with the arch. I mean, it's happening. It's great. Can't wait. Can't wait. The libs are going to lose their minds. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of changes in the world that are happening right now. Recent events show that global macro and micro risks are increasing, not decreasing. Better time to start adjusting your portfolio using the power of Allio Capital. Allio Capital is an investment app designed by people who understand macro perspectives on global events and your finances. The Fed has changed rates once again, signaling that they'll be moving quite a bit of things around this year as your wealth advisor adjusted your portfolio. Allio Capital is ready to have adjusted, managed portfolios in September, ready for new rate cuts in October, November, December, who knows? But it's all guided by their proprietary AI, which does faster investment analysis than any human. Allio is designed for a hands-on or hands-off approach. Clients trust Allio. Their average deposits are in the thousands. Don't just listen to me. Here's what an Allio customer had to say. Daniel from Miami says, I'm not a huge finance person, but Allio has made me more confident in securing my investing. I'm seeing real growth already. Download their app today. The average score of 4.8 out of 5 stars in the App Store or Google Play. Text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's Allio Capital. Text Benny to 511-511 today for Allio Capital. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the show. Off a absolutely blistering trip through the East Coast, but we made it work. Had a couple of slight delays. We appreciate you sticking with us. Had some very interesting, obviously, experiences. Still processing all of it. Still haven't really processed that Charlie's gone. And I hope it never do, actually. I hope it never hits me, in fact. We're just going to keep rolling with this energy, and we're going to keep rocking for our future. The future of this country that we give to our children. And that is our motivation. That's all we really need. And it's fun to fight, and it's an honor to be in the fight with you. Our verse of the day from James 1:21. Get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Be humble. Get rid of moral filth. That's what I feel like when I've left DC and New York. Get rid of the moral filth. There's still, it doesn't matter how much you clean them up, man. There are just still some evil people in DC. There's just some bad vibes, but you know what? No one is beyond the salvation of God. So humbly plant yourself in the word and it will save you. According to James 1:21. As simple Christians, we march forward with the confidence that in the end we win. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Right. Shut up. Shut up. Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.